back to another episode of Keeping Up with Commanders. I'm your host, Mason Kenahan, and today we are recapping and looking at the Washington Commanders' first football game in 216 days. The Washington Commanders just wrapped up their first preseason game of the year against the New York Jets. It came in a 20-17 loss to New York, where a last-second field goal by Austin Seibert was the game winner for New York, and the Washington Commanders only had like 10, 15 seconds to make a drive. But that's preseason's more than the score. We know that. So I'm going to dive into not only Jayden Daniels' impressive performance today, but also some offensive players that I thought played well, some offensive players that I think need some work, and same on the defensive side of the ball before we get into some more talk about the kickers, because this situation now is becoming pretty severe where Washington kind of needs a kicker at some point. So that we'll just jump right into it, starting with Jayden Daniels, who's probably the big storyline of the day. It was really cool seeing Jayden out there. Again, the second overall pick by the Washington Commanders, the rookie. There was a lot of talk about him heading into this game. He was announced the starter a couple days ago. I think it was like before the Jets joint practice back on Thursday. So Jayden Daniels was going to start this game. He was announced the starter. He hasn't been officially announced the QB1 yet for the regular season, but again, it's more of a when than an if with Jayden Daniels, and he really showed it today. So Jayden Daniels, his final stat line was 2 of 3 for 45 yards, and he also had 1 rush for 3 yards, which was a touchdown. I mean, I cannot say enough good things about his performance today, because it even surprised me. Coming into this, I thought, oh my goodness, Jayden Daniels, I don't really know really if he's just healthy by the end of it. I'm kind of happy because of their offensive line that they're coming in with. They didn't have Andrew Wiley. They didn't have Brandon Coleman. Sam Cosmi is coming off of an injury, who has kind of been limited in practice this week. So they're missing 2 of their 5 starting offensive linemen, which kind of worried me. And I really thought, hey, if Daniels can just have one, maybe 2 flashes and then get out of there healthy, I didn't really care about a scoring drive. Just, show you have something and then head into next week where you're probably going to play probably like a half, maybe a little bit more than that for Jayden Daniels, and just move on to the next week healthy, because this offensive line isn't really going to help you. Well, I was wrong. And Jayden Daniels, he was given the protection to make plays, and that's what he absolutely did. And it was the first third down for him. He launched a 42-yard throw to a 42-yard throw to De'Ami Brown on a third, and I believe it was 3rd and 6. I want to say 3rd and 7. It was a great throw. Put it out to where only De'Ami Brown could get it on the right sideline. Brown was covered. He beat his man just slightly. Still was kind of in contact with him, and then he had the safety closing in. So it was a tight window throw. It was a great pass from Jayden Daniels. It was also a pretty good catch from De'Ami Brown. Now, if he dropped that definitely would have been on De'Ami Brown. Like, it's a catch he should make, but it still was pretty difficult, and you got to give him props for making that catch through the contact as well. Took a hard fall to the ground. So it was a great throw, great catch, and that's when I was like, okay, that's a great throw from Jayden. Here we go now. And I mean, he really just seemed in control of that offense throughout the entire drive. He only played 1 drive, and it ended up being a touchdown drive. But on that play, I forgot to mention, on the play with the deep throw to De'Ami Brown, multiple players said it after. I believe Sam Cosmi said it on the radio. There was someone else who said it during so Zach Ertz said it on the TV when they were doing like in-game interviews. But the original play call that Cliff Kingsbury gave to Jayden Daniels was a screenplay. And it was a 3rd and 6, right? So just get him something, an easy throw. Maybe the receiver could make a move or not. I think it was probably going to be like a screenplay to De'Ami or maybe to Jahan. And so that was the original play call. Jayden Daniels at the line of scrimmage switches the play call from a screenplay to an all go. He's like me in Madden, basically. That's what I do in Madden. I believe there was only one safety. It was one high safety, and he guessed it. It looked to be cover 1 or cover 3. And he took advantage of it. It was a deep throw to De'Ami Brown. Brown beats his corner, and and the rest is that. So a big throw from Jayden Daniels. He'd love to see it. That was one of his specialties. I think it was S4E8 who pointed out that Jayden Daniels, his first completion in college was actually a very similar throw on a third down. It was a deep go route on the right side to I don't know who the receiver was, but it was a big play, big chunk play. So it's crazy that his first college completion and his first NFL completion were pretty similar. What else? And then of course later in the drive they marched all the way down to inside the 5 yard line. It was led by some very good runs from Brian Robinson, and then again some great blocking as well, not only in the pass block but in run block as well, which I wasn't really expecting that out of this offensive line. Now it did help that the Jets were not playing any of their starters. They were resting 28 players, pretty much all of their starters. I believe Will McDonald was still out there, but he was kind of the main guy. McDonald had some success in joint practice against some of these guys for Washington. So that was a guy that kind of worried me. I just didn't really know how this offensive line was going to hold up against this Jets, even if it was the Jets backups. But luckily it was the Jets backups because it gave Jayden Daniels some more time, gave Jayden Daniels confidence. The team marched down all the way down the field, and then I believe there was a false start against Nick Allegretti, who kind of pushed them back 5 yards. It was second and goal from the 7 yard line. They get it close, and then I forgot who the throw was to, but they get it pretty close inside the 5 yard line again. And even though you had some penalties that kind of pushed them back a little bit within the red zone, Jayden Daniels on a read option, he keeps it and he struts right into the end zone for a touchdown. I gotta say, great block by John Bates on that read option. That's not getting talked about enough. Really, is John Bates one of the probably he is the best blocking tight end on this Washington Commanders team. Is looking to be one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. It was a great block. He was going up against a linebacker. I'm pretty sure I don't remember who it was, but linebacker was kind of swinging in both ways. Bates, though, stayed connected with that linebacker and made sure Jayden Daniels had an open lane into the end zone. So that was it for Jayden Daniels. It was one drive, 2 completions on 3 attempts. I'll have to go back and look at every single one of his completions, every single one of his snaps again. Once the all 22 comes out, which I believe it will come out like tomorrow night or something. So I'll be posting that on my Twitter. I'm thinking about doing maybe some film reviews this year. So let me know if you guys want to see some film reviews because I'm excited. I'm gonna be watching these games anyways, so might want to look into that. But so Jayden Daniels, very impressive debut. I was excited to see him come out, itching for some Commanders football. He came out wearing the Doug Williams throwback jersey, right? So it was going to be. I felt like it was going to be a pretty good debut from Jayden Daniels, and it did not matter who was blocking him. The blocking was good enough so that he could deliver some nice throws, get some Commanders fans some excitement, get them excited for the following weeks. And then, of course, good just taking him out right after the touchdown drive. You saw enough of Jane. Good stuff from him. So very impressive debut from Jayden Daniels. I'm excited to see what is next. I expect Daniels probably to play a half, I would say, next week. I'd expect the starters to play a little bit more. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But Jayden Daniels, very impressive debut for the second overall pick. Moving on now to the offense. I want to kind of dive into the offense a little bit more. Some of my risers, some of my fallers, stock up, stock down type stuff from today's game. I mentioned it already, but again, the offensive line impressed me a lot. It impressed me a lot. Now, towards the end, in like the second half, towards the end of the game, it kind of fell apart a little bit. But early on, when Jayden Daniels was under center, it was very impressive. You had at left tackle, you had Trent Scott, and then you had Nick Allegretti at left guard, Tyler Biotish at center, Sam Cosmi at right guard, and Chris Paul at right tackle. Again, I'll have to go back and look at how the offensive line did end up panning out because again, it's kind of hard to see with the TV broadcast. But I thought they did a pretty nice job keeping Daniels safe in the pocket. I don't think he really took any major shots, any major hits during this game, which was again very impressive. So I liked what I liked what I saw out of this offensive line. Now for the guys like Ricky Stromberg, Brain Daniels, I've heard some things that he did pretty well. Again, it was kind of hard to tell. They were rotating players in and out so much, especially on the offensive line. It was kind of hard to tell at times who was in and who was out and which positions they're playing. So I'll have to look at the all 22 there. But I heard a lot of good things about Jayden Daniels already, so it sounds like he had a good game at right tackle. Ricky Stromberg, I felt like had some ups and downs. I'll have to look at him. Michael Dieter had some ups and downs. They had Julian Good-Jones in at center. Michael Dieter played some center. I believe Ricky Stromberg maybe played some center as well. So a lot of guys moving in and out within that starting lineup. Plus, you had all the new guys like Alex Taylor playing. You had what's his name, JC Hausenheier or something like that. Also in there at left guard for some time as well, kind of subbing in and out with Ricky Stromberg. So the back half, the depth needs some work still, but overall not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So I was pretty impressed by this offensive line. Ben Sinnott was a guy that impressed me a lot. The second round pick out of Kansas State. Sinnott was a guy that I loved coming out of college. I know Josh Taylor, I mentioned it before, loved him coming out of college. It was a guy who can play a lot of fullback. But like can block, but can also be a weapon in the pass game. And we haven't really seen Ben Sinnott in the pass game and what he can do during practices yet. But we saw what he could do today. He had let me bring up the exact numbers. He had a 44-yard completion. He was the leading receiver for the Washington Commanders today. 3 catches for 57 yards on 3 targets. His longest one was 44 yards, where it was kind of up the seam over the middle of the field. And I believe it was Hartman who threw it. But Sinnott probably broke like 6 tackles. He probably broke 6 tackles. He carried some defenders on his back, and he picked up probably 15, 20 yards of yak there. So it was a very, very impressive debut from Ben Sinnott. I liked what I seen out of it. I liked what I saw out of him a lot. Definitely think he's going to be the tight end 3 if there was any question, him or Cole Turner. He's above Cole Turner in the depth chart, and Turner did not have an amazing game. He had 1 catch for 4 yards, was only targeted 1 time, but I liked what I saw out of Sinnott a lot. So Ben Sinnott was a guy that impressed me. I talked about De'Ami Brown a little bit. He was the second leading receiver, 2 catches for 55 yards on 3 targets. He had that 1 catch on the deep throw from Jayden. Again, he had a very impressive day. I don't really fall. With him in preseason, he has some good preseason games and stuff, but once we get to the regular season, he kind of tricks a lot of people. So I'm still kind of questionable about him. I got another good receiver. I guess we're just on the topic of receiver. So another receiver that I liked was Bryson Tremaine. Tremaine had 1 catch for 16 yards. It was kind of a go up and catch it, middle of the field, right at the first down marker. Right at the first down marker catch, went up and he caught it. He had three targets. 2 of them, the other 2 targets were kind of out of his reach. So it wasn't really great passes from, I believe, one was from Driscoll, one was from Hartman, I want to say. Could be wrong there, but still, I liked what I saw at Bryson Tremaine, especially in run block as well. And then on special teams, he almost had a blocked punt. So it was a very impressive day from Tremaine, not only on offense, but on special teams. And then the final receiver I want to talk about is Luke McCaffrey. Sorry, second to final wide receiver I want to talk about is Luke McCaffrey. McCaffrey, the 3rd round pick out of Rice. McCaffrey did not see a lot. I don't think he saw any playing time in the first half, which I was a little bit surprised about. But because the majority of the first half actually went to Jahan Dotson, which was also a little bit surprising. Dotson was playing deep into the second quarter, which, again, he's a guy that's like wide receiver 2, right, for this team, or we assume as wide receiver 2. Having him play past when the starters were playing, having him play when Jeff Driscoll was the starting not starting quarterback, like was when Jeff Driscoll was in at quarterback was a little bit interesting. So something to monitor. I would say nothing crazy, but something to monitor that they did have Jahan Dotson out there for so long. And then McCaffrey, again, in the second half, he had 2 catches, 25 yards, his longest one being 19 yards, 3 targets for him. I liked what I saw out of Luke McCaffrey. Didn't see a lot of him at first, but kind of got into the game more as the game, especially as the second half went on. So, in terms of the quarterbacks, I'm gonna see if there's an update because in terms of the quarterbacks, Sam Hartman was probably the one that a lot of people are going to be talking about. He was 8 of 13, 83 yards, had a passer rating of 80. He left the game late in the 4th quarter with a shoulder injury. I don't think Dan Quinn said anything about when he is going to be able to return, but I think it was kind of precautionary. He left with an ice bag taped to his right shoulder, and he was carted to the MRI room. So we'll have to wait and see for an update on that. Just as Dan Quinn here is kind of talking, he said Brandon Coleman is dealing with the strain in his pectoral muscle. He's day to day or week to week, which is interesting. We'll have to wait and see if he's going to be able to play next week against Miami. If not, he'll probably see some time in the week 3 game against the New England Patriots. So, in terms of the other quarterbacks, Marcus Mariota, 1 of 1 for 6 yards. He took a sack though, which wasn't great. So, yeah, I don't know why I'm looking at the ESPN stats and they don't have him taking a sack, but I'm pretty sure Marcus Mariota took a sack. He only was in there for 1 drive. It was not impressive. It was not impressive at all for Marcus Mariota. So that was yeah, that wasn't great. And then Jeff Driscoll comes in, goes 7 of 15 for 87 yards. He also had a sack as well. Driscoll looked good early on in the second quarter. I really felt like Driscoll, he was moving the ball down the field. He led a field goal drive. He looked good early on. He came in for that second half though, and I mean it did not go so well. Like second time, sorry. It was like late in the fourth quarter after Sam Hartman went down with an injury. It did not look great for him after that. So again, in the fourth quarter, the team kind of died off in like the second half of the fourth quarter. So it was good for probably 3 quarters. We were up 17-10, and then the Jets, led by Adrian Martinez, the former Kansas State guy, leads the Jets down to a touchdown drive and the game-winning field goal. So the quarterbacks, again, probably they went in the order you'd expect: Daniels first, Mariota second, Driscoll third, Hartman fourth. Now I wonder if Mariota, his QB2 spot is maybe in danger. I wouldn't say that right now. I think that's kind of a little bit of an overreaction. Driscoll didn't play well enough, I felt like, to beat out Mariota. Even though Mariota played bad, I feel like this coaching staff kind of has him locked into that QB2 position, and it take some very impressive performances. I can't speak. It would take some very impressive performances from Jeff Driscoll to overtake Marcus Mariota for that QB2 spot. So that is that's the offense. I feel like some other things, Chris Rodriguez, I feel like could have played a little bit better. I mean, the offensive line, I didn't think was really helping him though towards the end of the game. So I like Chris Rodriguez could play a little bit better. Olamide Zaccheaus was actually very impressive to me. He had a very impressive, I think it was a punt return. Very impressive punt return. Kaz Allen had a catch for 12 yards. Marcus Rosemary, Jack Saint, Austin Jones, Jared McNichols, Colson Yankoff, Michael Wiley, Cole Turner, and Terry McLaurin all had a catch as well. It was 212 yards total passing for this offense. Actually, before we go to the defense, I want to do one more stock up. I'll say Michael Wiley. He had 8 rushes for 34 yards, which and the touchdown as well. The only touchdown not on the opening possession for the Washington Commanders. He was actually very impressive to me. I'll have to look back at his all 22, but that's a guy that I'm excited about. Maybe could sneak in as a practice squad guy if Chris Rodriguez continues to struggle and Michael Wiley's putting up these numbers. He averaged 4.3 yards per carry and had that touchdown. I believe he was a little bit active in the receiving game as well. I could be wrong. He had 1 catch for 5 yards in the receiving game. So maybe a little bit of a surprise there. They put Wiley in. Maybe they take Wiley on the roster instead of Chris Rodriguez. So that was my final thing on the offense. Moving on now to the defense and some risers and fallers over there. We'll start probably with Emmanuel Forbes. I hate doing it, but it was not pretty for Emmanuel Forbes. He had 1 good pass breakup early on. It was like, I believe, the very first play of the Jets offense, or one of the first plays of the Jets offense. But beyond that, he was kind of getting eaten up in the run game. They were attacking his side in the run game a lot. I think it was like 3 straight run plays that went towards Forbes' side, and Forbes kind of was just getting pushed back by the wide receiver that was on him. So it wasn't pretty there. And then, of course, that same drive ended with Tyrod Taylor throwing a beautiful pass. Let me find who it was. who got the touchdown? It was Jason Brownlee who caught the touchdown for the New York Jets early on, and I believe it was still in the first. Yeah, it was in the second quarter. So Forbes played the entire first half, which was definitely needed. I feel like wasn't great though. We'll have to wait and see the PFF grade and stuff later on, but. Jason Brownlee had a catch over him for a touchdown. Well, Forbes just kind of looked lost, which is becoming all too common right now for Emmanuel Forbes. So I talked in my last podcast episode I did with George Carmody. We talked about Forbes' mental game and how the mental game right now is probably more important than his physical traits, which is not usually good, but I feel like Forbes is at a point there's just too much noise around him right now, and it's getting to his head a little bit. You have to fix the mental game first before you can fix his physical abilities and his physical traits. So I just feel if you want to listen to that, that was the podcast before this one. But back to this game, it wasn't pretty from Emmanuel Forbes. I'm hoping that he can. I mean, he started the game too, and he played the entire first half. I'm hoping he can be better in the next few games. And I was hoping as well that he would have had like one big play that would kind of boost his confidence. Now he had the pass break up and he did a little like flutterbird thing. I don't really know what that is, but he did his little celebration. So, and then he got beat by Jason Brownlee for a touchdown. So, yeah, yeah. It was not great for Emmanuel Forbes. Now for another young player in this secondary, it was pretty good for. That was Mikey Sanders. Mikey Sanders was flying all over the field this game. He was making plays in the backfield. He was making plays in the secondary, making plays like between the 5 and 10 yards downfield. You know, he was everywhere. He was flying from sideline to sideline. There was one play where it was like a screen, I think, to Malachi Corley over on the right side of the field. Corley somehow gets all the way over to the left side, and Sanders still comes flying out of nowhere to make the tackle along with another guy that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters brought in this offseason, Frankie Louvu. That was probably my favorite play of the game. It was more okay. Actually, I don't know if it was my favorite play of the game because Jayden Daniels made some plays, but it was top 3. It was a top 3 play of the game in my opinion. Sanders still and Louvu flying all over the field to make sure they bring down Malachi Corley for the tackle for loss. It ended up being, I believe it was a third down too. I could be wrong, but I believe it was a third down when that happened as well. So it just shows the effort. I think that was one of the main things today that I noticed was just the amount of effort that this defense was putting in compared to the end of last season when you could really tell some of these guys were checked out. They weren't flying around the field. And in the very first preseason game, this is a preseason game, right? You guys like Mikey Sanders guys like Frankie Louvu, they know they're going to make the roster, right? They're not like being put. They know that they're going to make the roster no matter how they play really this game. So, I mean, just them showing that effort to still go over the top and kind of like put in the extra effort to make tackles like this and get tackles for loss was very impressive to me. So Sanders and Louvu had very good days in my opinion. They did not play very long. I think both of them played. Well, Sanders might have played a little bit longer, but I know Louvu played only 2 possessions, I think, and then Sanders might have played like an extra one. But in terms of the defense, Percy Butler led it with 5 tackles. It was like an up and down day for Percy Butler. Michael Walker was someone that I think kind of was a little bit of a stock up guy. He had 4 tackles for himself. He was also all over the field, especially in that second half. Jamin Davis was an interesting one. He finished with 4 tackles, but he was it was like 4 tackles, but 2 of them were run stops for like 1 yard each, which I mean, again, off the edge. This is off the edge, Jamin Davis that was making these tackles. He was blowing by Olu Fashanu. Again, Fashanu was one of the best tackle prospects in last year's class. Jamin Davis, right, moved him to edge rusher. What can he do at edge rusher? I mean, he was very impressive against the first-round pick just this year, Olu Fashanu. Fashanu was a guy that some Washington fans wanted the Commanders to trade up for. So, again, very highly praised prospect, and Jamin Davis was able to beat him on a couple of reps. It was like back-to-back reps, really. on a run play to get the run stop within, I believe it was like 1 or 2 yards of the line of scrimmage. So very impressive day from Jamin Davis in terms of his play off the edge. KJ Henry was a guy that stood out to me a lot. He had a tackle for loss, and then he also, I believe, had 2 or 3 more pressures on the quarterback as well in that second half. Really liked what I saw out of KJ Henry. Same with Javonte Jean-Baptiste. He had a tackle for loss. Some of these young edge rushers were flying off the edge in this game, which is something I really liked a lot. So good for Jean-Baptiste and KJ Henry. Some other things: Pittman had a tackle for loss. Quan Martin had a tackle for loss. Benning Potoai had a tackle for loss. So 5 total tackles for loss. No sacks, I believe. Oh, 1 sack. It was from Potoai. So, it was not that much pressure in terms of pressure on the quarterback, but in terms of like finishing it into sacks. But there were definitely some pressures from a bunch of different guys for this Washington pass rush. In terms of the secondary, there was no turnovers for either side, which was a little bit interesting, especially for a preseason game. I guess there was a lot of kind of safe stuff. Make sure, right, that like nothing is just trying to keep players' confidence up. I forgot what I was about to say. Just kind of keep players' confidence up. Tyler Owens had a good. I think Tyler Owens was the last guy I want to talk about. Tyler Owens had a good game as well. He was flying all over the field. He was making some pass breakups as well. I'm excited to see what his PFF score is going to be, especially in coverage, because he was kind of flying all over the field, making tackles. I believe he made a tackle on special teams as well, which, again, Tyler Owens is a guy that I've talked about multiple times throughout this training camp, especially over this last week. So we could maybe see him steal a roster spot this season. So again, with Derek Forrest was out today. Same with Bobby Wagner. Same with, there was like 12 guys I think that were out today. Some of the starters were out. Most of the defensive starters were in beyond Wagner. Newton was out, Jonathan Allen was out, Deron Payne was out, Derek Forrest was out, everyone else was in. So that's something to keep an eye on. Now, moving on here to the kicker struggles, because we got to talk about this, and I don't want to talk about this, but the Washington Commanders, streets are saying that like I'm trying out for the Washington Commanders kicking position tomorrow, because it's bad. It's bad. It is bad. So the 2 kickers, Ramiz Ahmed and Riley Patterson, they had 2 extra points each, and then they had 2 field goal attempts each. Ramiz Ahmed knocked down his extra point and knocked down his field goal as well. I believe the field. I'll look to see how close the field goal was, but I believe it was like pretty short. It was, what was it? 40 yards, a 40-yard field goal. We've seen Ahmed missed those in practice from like 42. He knocks down this 40-yarder one. But Riley Patterson, he knocked down his extra point, but he missed from 39. So Riley Patterson, the guy that I thought was probably the best kicker on this roster right now, missed from 39, which, guys, this is a problem. This is a problem, right? 2 kickers here that are consistently missing kicks is not good. I think if I had to make a bet right now, who would be the kicker on this Commanders team heading into week 1? I think it's a kicker that's not on this roster right now, because both of these guys have not been impressive. I would say, you don't need like a Justin Tucker out there, but you need someone that can make a 40-yard field goal or 45-yard field goal. So that's not been able to consistently happen in practice. And we saw Riley Patterson today miss one from less than 40 yards. So not great for this kicking unit, but that will probably be it for this week's episode. Today's episode, I guess, at this point, of Keeping Up with the Commanders. Washington football is back. We've got Jayden Daniels out there making plays. We've got guys on defense, young guys on defense making plays. Like, even though Forbes might be struggling, KJ Henry was out there. Javonte Jean-Baptiste was out there making plays. We saw Frankie Louver running around, Mikey Sanders still. Overall, I'd say it was a very impressive performance from this Washington Commanders team. Now, it ended up in a loss, but again, the score is not everything for the preseason. Again, it was kind of that second half of the fourth quarter where things started to untangle, and it was not great on both sides of the ball in that second half of the fourth quarter. But beyond that, If you want to see more clips, all 22 clips of Jayden Daniels and of other players, follow my Twitter at Mason_Kenahan, where I'll be posting these things once the all 22 comes out, probably tomorrow or end of the day tomorrow. So, yeah, that'll wrap it up. The next episode will be on Thursday after the joint practice for the Miami Dolphins. It's been a crazy week. I think we had like 4 or 5 episodes this week within the last week for Keeping Up with the Commanders. So a little bit of a break just until the joint practice on Thursday. Then we'll have Thursday, Friday, Saturday pods. Thursday being Dolphins joint practice. Friday being a Dolphins preview game show thing. And then Saturday being the actual game recap itself, just like today's. So that'll be it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. See you guys next one. Peace.